Open up pretty much any harmony textbook to the chapter on modulation, and you might get a few sentences about what modulation is, and then they immediately launch into the technical details of how to do it. But something really important that gets missed is why? What's even the point of changing keys anyway? For example, the John Williams piece Fawkes the Phoenix from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets goes through 4 different keys. The first time we hear the main theme, it's in A major, and the second time we hear it in C. This shift up a minor third from A to C gives the theme a huge lift, and we'll look at the 2 other key changes later in the video. If you're new here, I'm Ryan. I'm a composer for film, TV, and video games, and this channel is where I geek out about what makes great music work. Today, I want to talk about modulation and some of the reasons composers and songwriters might choose to use it. To make sure we're on the same page, let's start by establishing what I mean by modulation. In tonal music, which is the majority of stuff you hear on the radio or in a film or video game, the music is said to be in a certain key. This basically just means that there's a note that feels like home. In the key of C major, it's C. In A major, it's A. In F sharp minor, it's F sharp, and so on. So in A major, for example, A feels like the center and everything else gravitates around A. Some pitches have a stronger gravitational pull back than others, but wherever we go, generally, the piece feels most resolved and settled when we're back to A. Modulation is when the music is in one key, but then changes to a different key. Sometimes it's very gradual, and you might not even notice it. Sometimes it's very sudden and dramatic. But however it's done, the gravitational center of the music shifts. So if you're in A major, but then modulate to D major, the pitch A will no longer feel like home. Instead, D has become home. So let's get back to the point of the video. Why? Well, while outlining this video, I came up with a list of reasons, but really they all come down to one thing: contrast. In other words, doing something different to keep things interesting. Basically, when a piece stays in one key the entire time, it can get kind of boring. In his book Harmony, Walter Piston says, "Composers appear to have been in consistent agreement that to remain in one key throughout a piece of any length is aesthetically undesirable." In other words, don't be boring. Think of it like a painting with only one color, or a TV show with only one scene. Sure, that can be interesting sometimes, but usually those episodes are the exception, and there's an extra emphasis on the dialogue.
It's a bottle episode.
To keep a story interesting for the length of an entire episode, the characters almost always move through different scenes. It was a little hard to come up with a metaphor. That's not perfect, but the point is that modulation is a useful tool for having contrast over the course of a longer piece of music. So let's get a little deeper and think about how or where that could be helpful. One way is to use different keys as a source of conflict. For example, our starting key is home and safety, while another key represents struggle or tension. And the goal for the piece is to resolve the conflict and make it back home. So halfway through Fawkes the Phoenix, where everything has been happy and soaring and glorious, all of a sudden, things take a very dark and sinister turn when the music takes a sudden and dramatic shift to A minor. We can also use different keys to define the structure. If you have a longer work with multiple sections, putting each of the sections in a different key helps them stand out more from one another, and it gives the music a feeling of progress as we move along through the piece. Using keys to frame the structure of the piece is basically how the traditional sonata allegro form works, using different tonal centers as a major focus on the development of the music. It was pretty much a rule in classical music that a single movement of a work would end in the same key that it started in. The first movement of Mozart's Symphony 41 in G minor starts and ends in G minor. Take a wild guess what Beethoven's Third Symphony in E flat major starts and ends on. Gustav Mahler is a notable composer from breaking this convention around the turn of the century. And these days, your average listener will have no clue if your piece started and ended in the same key or in different keys. I've actually heard that audiences in the 18th century could follow the progression of keys, and so how and where the composer modulated to was actually something they were really paying attention to. Nowadays, not so much, and I don't have a source for that. It's just something I read a long time ago, so if anyone has any more information, let us know in the comments. Another way modulation can be a handy tool is by using it to create a change in the mood or energy of the music. When done abruptly, it can feel like all of a sudden we've just gone through a major transformation, usually with a sense of everything becoming bigger and bolder and more glorious. Just think of any 90s pop ballad. But even when done more gradually, changing key helps keep the music moving along, so we don't feel stuck in one place and instead like we're actually progressing to somewhere. Let's look at that final key change in Fox the Phoenix. But real quick, I want to mention this video is not sponsored, so I'll sponsor myself and remind you I have a beginner composition course called The Pillars of Composition. It covers melody writing and basic musical forms, harmonic techniques beyond plain diatonic chords, an introduction to counterpoint, and arranging and accompaniment techniques. You can find it at Master the Score or through the link down below the like button. So the last modulation in Fox the Phoenix comes with the arrival of the final A theme. We've just had this sinister A minor section, and so finally, when the conflict is over, we land back into a heroic major key. But this time, it's G major. This change from minor to major is glorious and huge and really feels like we're celebrating the return of the main theme. And the fact that we've added a sharp to our key means the music has gained lift and forward energy. So in the course of 3 minutes and 46 seconds, we travel through 4 different keys, and it's such a simple but effective technique. Even without hearing any of the themes or orchestration choices, just looking at the structure of those key changes tells us so much about the story. If anyone's up for making it, I'm sure it would be interesting to hear what this piece sounds like, where all of the keys are leveled out and it's just A major the entire time. I assume it would feel pretty flat and lifeless. And maybe it sounds obvious not to do that. And of course, the version with key changes will be better. But I hear an awful lot of student pieces that don't take advantage of this tool. But seriously, if anyone recreates Fox entirely in A major, comment with a link to a video and I'll pin the best one. Another film scoring legend who knew exactly how to use key to tell a story is James Horner. If you want to understand how he did that masterfully in the score to Braveheart, then you need to watch this video next. In this case, he keeps the tonic the same, but changes the mode. And I wanted to keep this video focused on the why of modulation, but if you'd still like to see a how-to video, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.